And by One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. Pauline, great to see you. Now, I wanted to ask you your response to the furore around your comments, which I've talked about and given my opinion of. But tell me, how have you responded to the furore this week about your questions about good Muslims versus bad Muslims?
I think the whole lot, look, I admit the way I framed it and the way it came across. But I question, how do you know? Rowan, I think that we need to have this discussion where the country is headed, what do we expect for the future for our future generations. And I keep going back to other countries like England and France. Go and ask the people of Egypt or the Christian Lebanese or even Iran, how has it worked out for them? Not very well. You've got protests now in the streets, especially by women who are forced to wear the hijab or the burqa to cover up. And these women are being flogged, jailed, or even losing their life because they dare protest against Islam. Yes, you do have radical Islams. You have those people that are in the country. And it's been proven that we have these people, but I don't believe the vetting process, we don't do enough of it. Eventually in time, my concern is we're losing our culture, our heritage, and in certain areas, once they get into councils, they'll push their own beliefs. Sharia law is being practiced in this country, have no doubt about it.
Before you click off this video, I want to ask you something real quick. If you found even one thing in this video helpful, inspiring, or valuable, imagine what you'll get from the next one. This channel isn't just about random uploads. It's about growth. It's about learning. It's about leveling up together. And the only way you don't miss what's coming next is by hitting that subscribe button right now. Seriously, it takes 2 seconds, but it makes a huge difference. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting the channel. You're joining a community of people who are committed to improving, building, creating, and pushing forward. Every single week, I show up here to bring you content designed to help you think better, move smarter, and stay motivated. And let me tell you, the next videos coming up are even bigger. I'm talking deeper insights, better strategies, and practical tips you can actually use right away. So don't just watch, be part of it. Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and drop a comment below letting me know you joined the community. I actually read your comments, and a lot of future videos are inspired by what you tell me. If you've already subscribed, I appreciate you more than you know. You're the reason this channel keeps growing. Let's keep building. Let's keep improving. Let's keep showing up. Click that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.
The fact that you're prepared to raise these questions is the critical thing. And I would like to know what the response from the public has been to you, because I certainly believe we should be having these discussions. And, OK, you can say this word or this phrase or that phrase or whatever and get upset about it. But this is a country where we're supposed to have free speech. You should be able to ask questions, particularly questions surrounding the demographics, immigration and critical things. You had Angus Taylor saying we want to shut the door, but we haven't had any specifics. All you were saying was, well, we want to make sure we shut the door to certain people with certain views. What has been the reaction from the public? Yeah. Because I've seen you in public and I know you get the opinions. They come up to you and they tell you exactly what they think. What's been the reaction this week?
Overwhelming support from the public who back me all the way. You know, for Angus Taylor, motherhood statements, and we're going to actually Australian values and all the rest of it. Well, tell us what they are, Angus. What are your Australian values? And I'm sick of these politicians trying to appease all these groups. The same as Labor is trying to appease them, because three main seats, Clare, Burke and also Bowen, are heavily dominated by Muslims. Of course they're going to do everything to appease them. And that's not the way this country should be running. And I just fear for the future generations if we keep heading down this path. And I keep saying it, go back to, have a look at England. I had a fellow pull me up in the shopping the other day and he said, I'm from England. Go for it, Pauline. He said, do not let Australia become like England. And that's what people are fearful of, what's happening. So, you know, Rowan, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I haven't got a university degree. But what my parents gave me was common sense. And that's few and far between with these elitists, with these politicians that we have now. The general public out there, they're not stupid. And these are things, yeah, I keep coming out and I raise these issues, I get criticised, I get put down by the left, by those agitators, the people who don't like what I'm saying. But unless we have debate on a lot of these topics and issues, are we going to bury our head in the sand till it gets to a stage we can't turn it around? I'm not going to give up what I believe in. It will be up to the people at the next election. Do they want Pauline Hanson or not? It will be their choice.
And well, that's a great point, because we've just had Peter Malinauskas, so you've got the South Australian election coming up. You've got Corey Bernardi as your star candidate there. That's all happening. Listen to this, possibly the oddest and weirdest comment I've heard from an Australian Premier, and that's saying something in some time. Have a listen, Pauline, to these comments from Peter Malinauskas about One Nation.
My message to One Nation voters is, who's going to feed you and bathe you and wipe your bum when you're 90? Right? Because it ain't going to be your kids. Because if I get my way, they're going to be working on submarines. With high-paying jobs, so they can afford to own their home. That has to be built by someone. And who's going to do that work?
Wiping your bum? What on earth is this character on about?
What an absolute stupid comment to make with regards, to One Nation, or, if he thinks that's an election issue. What a stupid comment. He needs to look at the ramping, hospital ramping, the educational system, what's happening in South Australia, and the crime. This is what people are concerned about, the cost of living, whether they can actually buy a house. Rental accommodation in South Australia is extremely high. You can't get rental accommodation, so it's been extremely high. These stupid politicians, what they go out and say, and they're in fear of One Nation because right across the whole country, even this week, we've increased again in our polling, Rowan. And this is what they did to me the first time around, is they went after me when we won 11 seats in Queensland state election 1998.
I also think, in my opinion, Peter Malinauskas' comments that somehow it's only immigrants who do lower jobs is deeply racist of its own.
Identify individuals with extremist views before they enter the country. She suggested that radical elements already exist within Australia and warned that over time they could influence local governance and community norms. One of her most controversial claims was that forms of religious law are already being practiced informally in parts of the country, an assertion that experts and government officials have repeatedly challenged. Still, for her supporters, such warnings resonate with fears about cultural change and social cohesion. The interviewer pushed back slightly, but also defended the importance of free speech. He argued that discussing immigration, demographics, and national identity should be allowed in a democratic society, even if the language used is imperfect or provocative. According to this view, suppressing such discussions only fuels resentment and distrust among voters who feel their concerns are ignored by mainstream politics. Hanson agreed, saying that public debate, even uncomfortable debate, is necessary if a nation wants to make informed decisions about its future. When asked about public reaction, Hanson claimed she had received overwhelming support. She described people approaching her in public places to express agreement and encouragement. One anecdote she shared involved a man from England who warned her not to let Australia follow what he viewed as the same social path as his home country. Stories like this, she argued, show that her message resonates beyond political circles and reflects broader community anxieties. Hanson also took aim at major party politicians, particularly accusing them of using vague rhetoric about Australian values without defining what those values actually mean in policy terms. She criticised both major parties for what she described as attempts to appease specific voter groups for electoral advantage. In her view, this approach risks fragmenting national unity by prioritising identity politics over shared civic principles. She framed her own political stance as rooted in what she calls common sense and the perspective of ordinary Australians rather than political elites. At the heart of her argument is a narrative she has used throughout her political career that she represents the voice of people who feel ignored by establishment politics. Hanson often emphasizes her personal background growing up without privilege or higher education to contrast herself with university-educated political leaders. She argues this life experience gives her a closer connection to everyday concerns about cost of living, housing, and cultural change. Critics say this framing oversimplifies policy debates, but supporters see authenticity in her message. The conversation then shifted toward electoral politics, particularly the upcoming South Australian election and the broader competition between minor parties and major parties. Hanson's party has been attempting to expand its influence beyond its traditional strongholds, and she claimed recent polling gains were causing anxiety among political opponents. According to her, criticism from other leaders reflects fear of her party's growing support rather than genuine policy disagreement. This led into discussion of remarks made by South Australian Premier Peter Malinauskas, who suggested that immigration is necessary to fill labour shortages, including roles in aged care. His comments, phrased in a blunt and controversial way, were criticised by Hanson and the interviewer as disrespectful and dismissive. Hanson argued that reducing immigration debates to labour supply ignores deeper issues such as healthcare capacity, housing shortages, and cost of living pressures. She suggested voters are more concerned with these immediate economic challenges than with abstract workforce projections. Hanson also accused political leaders of stereotyping immigrants by implying they primarily perform low-status work. The interviewer added that such assumptions could themselves be considered discriminatory, suggesting a paradox in a rhetoric surrounding immigration debates. Both argued that political discourse has become increasingly polarized with accusations of racism and extremism used to shut down opposing viewpoints rather than engage with them. Throughout the interview, Hanson returned to a central theme: the importance of open discussion before social changes become irreversible. She warned that ignoring public concerns could eventually lead to deeper division or policy overcorrection in the future. Her message to voters was that elections ultimately decide whether her views reflect public sentiment or remain on the political fringe. She framed this as democratic accountability. If people disagree, they can vote against her. If they agree, they can support her platform. The broader context of this debate reflects tensions seen across many Western democracies where questions about immigration levels, integration, and national identity have become politically charged. Supporters of stricter immigration policies often argue they are defending social cohesion and economic stability. Opponents argue such rhetoric risks stigmatizing minorities and undermining multicultural principles. The clash between these perspectives has shaped political movements from Europe to North America and now continues to influence Australia's domestic politics. What makes Hanson's comments particularly impactful is her long-standing role as a polarizing figure. For nearly 3 decades, she has positioned herself as an outsider challenging political correctness and establishment consensus. That reputation means her statements often attract strong reactions, both supportive and critical. For her base, controversy confirms she is challenging powerful interests. For opponents, it reinforces concerns about divisive politics. As Australia approaches future elections, debates like this are likely to intensify. Issues such as immigration, cultural identity, economic security, and freedom of speech remain deeply interconnected in public perception. Whether Hanson's arguments represent legitimate policy concerns or harmful generalizations is ultimately a matter voters and society must decide through democratic discussion and electoral choice. In the end, the interview highlighted a recurring tension in modern democracies: how to balance open debate with social cohesion and how to address public anxieties without inflaming division. Hanson's stance underscores one side of that tension, emphasizing caution and cultural preservation. Her critics emphasize inclusion and diversity. The challenge for Australia, like many nations, is navigating these competing visions while maintaining both democratic values and social harmony.